On this channel, I have made several videos featuring this guy here. This is the Pioneer DJ DDJ Flex 4 entry-level controller. In my opinion, one of the best entry-level controllers on the market. That is just my opinion. But in the comments, I often get asked, should I buy this or should I buy, say, a Hercules Impulse 500? Should I buy this or a DDJ 400? Or perhaps something from Newmark, etc., etc. You get the idea. Now, in my opinion, when you're buying your DJ controller, asking yourself, should I buy this or something else, is probably the wrong approach. And in this video, I'm going to give you the questions you need to be asking yourself to help you make the best purchase decision when you go out and buy your DJ controller. So let's get into it. Quickly, before we get started on the actual questions you need to ask yourself and the considerations you need to make, know this: the bottom line with any DJ equipment that you buy is ultimately they all do the same thing. They might do it in slightly different ways, but they all do the same thing. They allow you, especially with a controller or even a CDJ setup, they allow you to basically load 2 tracks in, one on each deck. If you've got 2 CDJs, it's exactly the same on 1 CDJ, 2 CDJs, or if you've got 4 CDJs, you have up to 4 tracks. But basically, they allow the DJ to mix one song seamlessly into the other. Now, there are creative tools on these devices in order to really kind of do this in a creative way via hot cues, loops, and all the rest of it, and mixer effects. But ultimately, they all do the same thing. So question one that you really need to ask yourself is, what kind of DJ do you aspire to be, or what is the overall aim of your DJing? Now, it does not matter if you don't have a definitive answer, but at least have a think about it. And the reason why I think this is a good starting point is because if you, for example, aspire to be a nightclub DJ, or you want to play on the festival stages and you want to be a touring artist, then in my opinion, Pioneer DJ Alpha Theta stuff is probably the way that you want to go, because this, whether you like it or not, is the industry standard that is out there. And if you buy into the Pioneer ecosystem straight off the bat, like the jump between this Flex 4 and even a CDJ setup is going to be a lot easier, because the layout is the same. Obviously, it all uses the same software, which is Rekordbox as the default. I know this uses Serato as well. You can use Serato as well. But like, if you're using Rekordbox and you're analyzing your tracks as Rekordbox, you're just going to have a lot more of a seamless journey if you move from something that's more entry level into something a lot more elaborate further down the line. And the time it's going to take for you to adapt to that new equipment is going to be less. And whether you like it or not, Pioneer, Alpha Theta, whatever you want to call them, rightly or wrongly so, they are the industry standard. If I was to go to my local nightclub, for example, and say, can you get me some Denon decks? They'd probably look at me weirdly and they'd probably laugh at me, because Pioneer is just in all the rooms of that club. Everyone just buys Pioneer. I'm not saying that if you've bought a Hercules controller or a Denon controller that you can't make that transition across. You know, it's not a case of if you bought Hercules, you're never going to be able to play on Pioneer. You are just going to have a slightly easier time, and I'm all about working smarter and not harder, to be honest. Now, of course, if you don't aspire to play in nightclubs or the festivals or whatever, then you're probably going to be playing at home casually in your bedroom, your living room, maybe sharing some mixes online with friends, family, maybe spinning at the odd house party, or maybe you're doing private events like weddings, corporate events, that kind of thing. Well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter what you buy. As I said, this equipment all does the same thing. Like, it's just down to personal preference. And we're going to come into now some other considerations of equipment that you need to take into account if you find yourself DJing in different situations. So now that we have considered the type of DJ that you aim to be or you aspire to be, hopefully that has started to unpick what brand of DJ equipment might be best suited to you. The second consideration that I think is really, really important is what situations, and sorry, I'm waving this around because it's the only controller that I have and it's lightweight anyway, but what situations are you going to be using your controller in? What applications are you using this? And consider the practical features of the controller. Now, when I talk about practical features, it's the best description I can come up with. I'm not talking about the fact that it's got hot cues, loops, effects on the mixer, all of that creative stuff. Put the creative stuff to one side, okay? But consider if the controller you're considering buying is suitable in a practical sense. And I feel like I'm not making much sense here, but what we're talking about here is considering things like the outputs to the master. You know, this just has a simple RCA output to the master speakers. Does it have a microphone input? Can you connect booth monitors, etc., etc.? Now, the reason why that is important is because ultimately some controllers are going to be better at some jobs than others. And I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, if you are a wedding DJ and you need to be able to connect your own microphone, but also supply a microphone to guests so that they can do speeches, etc., you're probably going to want a controller that has got more than one microphone input. But also, and like I say, this DDJ Flex 4 has got a microphone input, but the controls on that microphone are fairly limited. You can control the volume and the attenuation on the back, but that is pretty much it. With more expensive controllers and potentially other controllers at this price point with different manufacturers, you might be able to add more than one microphone, which is going to be brilliant for wedding DJing. You could potentially also look at that microphone functionality in terms of EQ. Can you EQ the microphone, giving you a better quality of sound? So that's going to be really important. So list out the features that you need. For bedroom DJing, this could be absolutely perfect because you're not going to need two microphone inputs. You're certainly not going to need to EQ microphones, that's for sure. Also consider the sound system that you're plugging into. A lot of professional sound systems will have XLR inputs. So you'll look for a controller, hopefully, that has XLR output. It's a lot more of a sturdy connection, like compared to RCA outputs. RCA is not too bad, but XLR is almost like considered as the professional standard. And especially if you're playing at events where you're plugging into big sound systems, an XLR output might be better. If you want to take this over to nightclubs or maybe outdoor events where there's going to be delays from this controller to the main sound system, you might want to consider a controller that has booth monitor input so that you can have a monitor which hasn't got a delay. So it's those sorts of things that you're going to need to consider when you are buying your controller. Consider the applications that you want to use this in. It's very, very important. And then all of the creative stuff like the effects, the loops and everything, think about that later, but think about practical stuff first. Third consideration, and this is another practical one, but it's to do with what is under the hood, so what is inside. Now, if you're DJing at a house party, maybe you're connecting up to some monitor speakers, playing to 10, 20 people, something like this is going to be absolutely fine. However, if you're connecting this to a big sound system, the sound card in here is not going to be as good as what you find in more expensive units. And so when you get on bigger sound systems, that becomes a little bit noticeable, and the quality of the sound is probably not going to be quite as good. When you're on smaller speakers, on cheaper speakers, you're not going to notice too much. But when you start getting up into bigger sound systems, more expensive sound systems that are capable of, you know, really showcasing the detail of your tracks, then you are going to notice a fundamental difference, okay? So do consider that. Fourth consideration then, and this is a very quick one, is what software you're going to be running on your laptop. For example, this Flex 4, I'm not going to wave it around again anymore, but you know, this works absolutely fine with Rekordbox and Serato, but it doesn't work with Traktor. This probably works with Virtual DJ because Virtual DJ works with anything on the market, I swear. But yeah, if you're using Virtual DJ, Rekordbox, Serato, then this is going to be fine. But if you're going to use Traktor, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to use this. Similarly, there's a lot of controllers out there that do not work with Rekordbox, but they do work with Serato. There are Pioneer controllers that don't work with Serato, but only work with Rekordbox. So very, very quickly, have in mind what software you want to use and then pick accordingly to that. And then finally, fifth consideration, and that is considering your budget, okay? If you're a brand new DJ that's never DJ'd before, don't break the bank. I always say you shouldn't spend loads and loads of money on equipment because you don't know if you're going to like DJing or if you're even going to be doing it in 6 months' time. Similarly, if you are a bit more experienced, maybe you're a corporate DJ that's got some high-end weddings, some corporate gigs with companies, and you're getting paid quite well for it, then in my opinion you're probably going to need to spend a little bit more money on something a little bit more elaborate that matches the investment that people are making into you. That is just my opinion, but consider your budget and stick within a budget. Notice in this video that I have not covered off considering any of the creative elements of a DJ controller, so looping, hot cues, mixer effects, all of that kind of stuff, because in my opinion, I don't think you're gonna really need to consider that straight off the bat. These practical things that I've spoken about are more important than any kind of creative effects. This is an entry-level controller and it has got so many creative effects on it, and you know, DJ controllers these days have a lot of stuff already built into it, even at an entry level. So there's always going to be plenty of toys to play with, whatever you decide to buy. And if it's not on the controller, then your software is also going to have some creative stuff on it. I hope that you have found this video useful. If you have made it this far and you've got some value from it, please do give me a thumbs up because it helps spread the word and it helps this little channel to grow. I can't believe we're at over 6,000 subscribers now, so thank you to each and every one of you. Until the next time, I'll see you then.